Hi, I'm on. Hello, welcome to ReneMarie Stroke of Luck. I'm ReneMarie, and happy 2019. I am so overwhelmed and just really, I can't tell you how excited I'm about for 2019. This is going to be a very, 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 and did I say very enough, memorable year in our foundation and in my life. This is what's going on. It's our 5th season of ReneMarie Stroke of Luck TV. It is our 5th annual Language of Love Telethon. It is our 5th annual Language of Love Foundation anniversary, and it'll be my 30th year after my stroke, my anniversary for my stroke. So 2019 is really going to be a celebratory year, but really a year where we take our foundation and our mission to the next level, and we are so excited about what we're doing. Before I talk to you a little bit about, more about the foundation, I know everyone is noting, like, where's Judy? Where's Judy? Well, Judy wasn't feeling well today. So hi, Judy. How are you? I hope you're feeling better and hope you're watching us. But I am really honored to have this personal interview, and Jim from the studio is going to be helping me to talk to Assemblyman Michael Fitzpatrick. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming again and really, supporting us and bringing knowledge to us about what's going on in the New York chapter. So it's really an honor and privilege. And pardon me if I cough during this show, because over the holiday I was very, very, very sick. I had an upper respiratory infection, and I'm still taking some cough medicine to prevent me from coughing. And it really has been, I really have, if I wasn't off for hiatus for the season, I probably would have had to take off because I was really very, very sick. But I'm feeling better. And really excited about 2019. Our telethon is going to be right here in the Village Connection Studio Network on May 5th, 2019. I believe we're going to start it at 10, but that'll come a little bit later. We'll give you the details on that. Miss Connecticut is going to be live in the studio. We're really excited that she has chosen this show's platform once again to talk about her experience. I saw Miss Connecticut on Bridget is her name. I saw Miss Connecticut on the Miss America pageant, and she was interviewed and she was asked what she would like to do, and she gave a little story about the fact that a friend of hers had suffered a stroke and she didn't know the signs. And she wants to bring awareness to strokes to save lives. And that's what our goal is. Our goal is to save lives and also the quality of life after somebody suffers a stroke. So, we're really passionate and really very, very honored to have this platform at Village Connection Studio. So thank you so much, Jim, for welcoming us. And we're going on to our second year, and we were here in April last year.
And our
second telethon. Our telethon, Mike.
I'll be a pro this year.
We pulled the telethon together in 6 weeks last time.
Nice.
Because we didn't have a studio, so it was crazy. And it's very memorable for me, the 30th anniversary of my stroke, because when I think back of every day I recover more. I always need to remember, and I always remember God. I always think that God always keeps my arm a little bit off balance, so that I always remember not get back to where I used to be, always to stay where I am. But every day, like, I think back of how much my recovery and how hard it was and how the struggles were and how focused I was, and I really want to bring that to everybody. So I was just at a support group, and if anybody would like me to come and talk to anybody that has had a stroke, or anyone that's in a hospital or rehab or family, please let me know, because I want to bring them hope that there is life after a stroke. There is life after a stroke. Sorry about that. So let's start talking to our special guest, and I want to officially thank you, Assemblyman, for coming and This is your third or fourth time. Maybe.
I think it's my second.
No.
Mm-hmm.
You were second here.
Second here.
But you were in Madhouse
right.
TV.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if it's once or twice
right.
you're Madhouse TV.
This is my third.
This is your
Yes.
third.
Yes. You're
So,
right.
and we take it for granted that you're here, but like when you're an assemblyman, it's 24/7. You never know when you're going to be talking or speaking or going to government, or so it's a cumbersome, really responsible job that is awesome.
I wouldn't say cumbersome. It is a lifestyle.
Yes,
a
lifestyle.
Public life, elected
Yes.
as an elected official is definitely a lifestyle. At the state level, I'm away from home a few days a week, 6 months of the year, which is not that bad.
How are you away from home? Are you?
Well, we're in session in Albany.
Oh,
so,
okay. So
you're living out of a suitcase.
Okay.
A couple days a week. We start in January, right after the holidays. We'll go up. I have to go up tomorrow, for example, and we have a series of events on Tuesday, swearing in ceremonies, because we are beginning the new session. Wednesday, we gavel in officially for our session. And traditionally, that is the day when the governor issues his State of the State speech. And I jokingly call opening day really a day-long party interrupted by a speech, because the governor has a reception. The Assembly Speaker has a reception. Excuse me. The Senate will have a reception. The Attorney General will have a reception. So you're kind of making the rounds, and it's kind of like going back to college, for the new semester. It's great to see everybody. You've been away for the summer, the off season, and you get back and see your old friends. You renew your friendships, etc. And then next week we get down to business. So we're on a 2-day. Our schedule, Renee, mirrors the kids' school schedule, basically. So we have a 2-day schedule until the midwinter break, because we're off for that week in February when the kids are off. And then when we come back from that, we go right into budget mode, because April 1st is the statutory deadline to pass a budget. And that's our foremost responsibility each year. And that is, how much will we have in school aid, how much will we have for Medicaid, et cetera, all down the line of priorities. And so we go into 4-day weeks. And those get pretty busy. And then after April 1st, assuming the budget is on time or timely, usually Easter Passover falls around that time period, and then we're off for about 2 weeks, and then we come back, and then we go to 3-day weeks. And that's when most of the non-budgetary items, social legislation, medical marijuana, things like that, usually come up after the budget. And then we go on until toward the end of May and June, and then we go into our what we call shutdown mode in the legislature, where we are cleaning up the calendar, and we then have a number of what we call local bills that need to be passed by the state legislature, but are focused usually on a small community need. You need something for your library, or a parkland alienation. It doesn't have statewide significance. However, it requires passage by the state legislature. Those are called local bills. And that takes up a lot of our time at the end, because even though it's a local bill, a small thing, so to speak, it still requires all of the legislative has to pass all the legislative requirements. The attorneys have to make sure that I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, etc. So each of these bills, and I'll have 2 or 3 or 4 in a year, so multiply that by 150, and it gets pretty busy. So the legal staff works very hard. What if I
wanted to, if I, an ordinary, not
average citizen
wanted to put in a bill for health care? How do we go about doing that?
Well, we produce. I believe every state legislature, even in Washington, produces a little brochure called
which I'm going to get.
How I will get one to you.
Okay.
How a bill becomes a law, and it basically begins with an idea, or an occurrence in the news that prompts a need for there ought to be a law to do this or against that. You'd be surprised how often that just an idea. People have an idea and they bring it to their assembly member, their senator, and they'll look at it, and We sit down with program staff, with legal staff, and your what we call the bill drafting commission. If we want to draft a bill, there is language that has to be used so they call it the bill drafting commission.
Okay.
Every member is assigned a bill drafter. A bill drafter will usually have anywhere from a half a dozen to a dozen or so legislators that they are assigned to. So if I need a bill drafted, they will draft that bill.
Right.
They'll give us the first copy. We'll review it. Sometimes you work in concert with, say, the Stroke Association or the Medical Association,
Right.
Cancer Society.
Right.
You know, depending on the interest group.
Right.
I know that's sometimes a negative term, but it really shouldn't be, because whatever you do as a vocation
Mhm.
or an avocation, that is an interest group.
Right.
And you know,
Right.
it's a collection of citizens who want to advance public policy in a particular field or in a particular
Mm.
direction. So
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to write Corinne. She does it in Trenton, New Jersey.
Sure.
She works for the American Stroke Association.
Sure.
So she's in there working.
And what
the
and
bills.
what she does is exactly what her counterpart in New York does, and that is they will assist your members in crafting legislation. They will follow legislation once it is proposed to make sure it goes through the system as reasonably quickly as possible. They will communicate with their membership to keep people informed as to the status of the bill, because the wheels of government do grind slowly, and that is by design.
I know.
Sometimes they can be sped up. However, generally speaking, they do grind slowly, because when legislation has statewide significance, there are many stakeholders.
Yeah.
And there are going to be people who may agree with you 100%. There may also be people who disagree with
Right.
you.
Right.
And sometimes bills,
Keep getting pushed back because they
get
want it.
pushed back,
They
or
want
they-
it. Yeah.
they
They
reach a
wanna
roadblock
yes.
because there is a problem with this provision,
Yeah.
that provision, this language, that language, what's the intent, etc. It can get
Sorry.
it can get complicated sometimes, not always, but sometimes. So when and sometimes bills reach a point where they go no farther, and they stall, and then the bill dies.
Right.
Or there may be strong opposition to a bill, and it dies in committee. And then sometimes, there are bills. We have legislation that comes back every
yes,
session.
Yes. Yes.
Like, for example, single payer healthcare is a hot topic now. Well, my colleague, Assemblyman Richard Gottfried, who's the chair of the Health Committee, and Richard also, he's a friend of mine. He happens to have the distinction of being the longest serving member of the state legislature. He's, I think, pretty much 48 years, I believe. He's
Oh my
been an
gosh.
assembly member. So he's, elder statesman. He's, I'm a conservative. He's a very liberal guy, but he's a gentleman and a nice guy. And we've gone out to dinner, as a group, periodically. And he's a great guy to talk. Great history.
Yeah. Yeah.
His
Yeah.
institutional knowledge and the stories he tells. I
Yeah.
just enjoy
Yeah.
his company and being around him
Right.
for the history lesson that you get. But and we discuss policy as well, and we disagree a lot, but
Right.
that's
Yeah. It's a
it's
relationship.
a good thing.
It's a healthy relationship.
You can agree to disagree
Yeah.
without being disagreeable.
Yeah.
And so Dick has been carrying the single payer legislation for, God, it's got to be at least 30 years.
Now,
And it's
tell
never,
us, before you continue, tell us
Sure.
what that particular is.
Well, single payer healthcare is basically government control of the healthcare system.
Okay.
A single payer. Government will tax the public to pay for, and will be the single payer.
Is that like Canada?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Canada, the UK,
Yes,
etc.
okay.
It is, it is nationalized healthcare. It is
Right.
socialized medicine.
Right.
It's all those things. So Dick has been a believer in that for decades. He has carried the bill every single session for that every year. He debates it on the floor every year. It passes the Assembly, but it has never passed the state Senate. All right? We debate it. It passes the Assembly, but it has to pass both houses in order to go to the governor's desk. Now, He is going to carry that bill again this year. This year, you have a Democrat-controlled Senate. Now, is the governor on board? The governor is not
Totally.
on board with this. However, it may pass both houses this year in a first. But will the governor sign it? If the governor vetoes it, is there enough support in both houses to override the governor's veto?
Right.
That remains to be seen. All this will play out this year. We'll have to see what happens. So when you have change, like we are going to experience this upcoming session, where for many years we had a Democrat-controlled Assembly, a Republican-controlled Senate, and you had to compromise to get bills through. Now, the Democrats control both houses. They're not necessarily interested in compromise. They can now pass their agenda. The governor is a Democrat. He may be on board with all of their agenda, some of it,
Right.
maybe most of it. All this is going to play out in the coming 6 months while we're in session.
I hope, and my hope is that, these two sides coming in fresh, come in with open hearts and open minds, and not with their pre thought of plan of actions, to really take things, to listen, to gather all the information from both sides.
It boils down to the individuals involved.
Yeah.
We're a state of over 18, almost 19 million people, and yet 213 people, that's 63 in the Senate, 150 in the Assembly, will make public policy for everybody. So, everybody in office, everybody has an agenda. Everybody does.
Right.
I have an agenda. There are policy goals that I have. There are policy goals that all 149 of my colleagues have
Right.
as well. Goals that we all have that we'd like to see. Now, I know some of my goals will never be realized because there isn't a political consensus to do
Right.
that.
Right.
Dick Gottfried, on the 180 degrees on the other side of me politically, has an agenda as well, and he has not been able to realize his agenda. So politics, as they say, is the art of compromise, and how compromising are both sides willing to be. And when you have government dominated by one party, as we will have this year, some of those goals that have not been realized by those, my friends on the Democratic side, are now going to be able to be passed. Now, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean there won't be internal disagreements on some of these policy issues.
Right.
There will be.
Right.
And there will be differences of opinion between the legislature and the executive, or the governor, on some of these things. And as we just discussed, sometimes bills reach a point where they can't get any further because, the governor disagrees with this, or the Senate disagrees with this provision advocated by the Assembly, or vice versa. They will go back to the drawing board.
Isn't the thought process that someone who's elected in is the voice of the people?
Yes, and you have 150 members of the Assembly that represent almost 19 million people. You have 63 senators that represent
Right.
almost 19 million people.
So
there's a lot of diversity of thought among 19 million people.
Yeah, but I just want to. I just want to be assured that they are listening to the voice of the people.
We are, because what happens when we're in session and locally is we are constantly lobbied. No, I know lobbying.
What's lobbied? What's lobbied?
Lobby is a term that started, goes way back when people advancing or advocating for certain causes would talk to legislators in the lobby of the legislative chamber.
Okay.
So they became lobbyists.
Okay.
That's kind of the short version
Okay.
of how the term lobbying or lobbyist came about. But a lobbyist is simply an individual who represents a group of people or an organization or a cause that does not come in and twist your arm, so to speak.
Right.
They come in and they advocate for or against whatever legislation is before us.
Right.
And they, on behalf of this particular group of people, this particular organization, come in to talk to you about a bill, either for it or against it, and they give you information and they try to persuade you to their line of thinking.
Right.
Now, my job as a legislator, because I'm representing roughly 135,000 constituents
Right.
of all persuasions, of different parties, etc. I receive them in my office, both in Albany and locally, and we have a conversation. And they state their case. I have a duty to ask questions and to try and get as much information for me, because they're trying to persuade me to come to their side.
Hold on one second, Jim.
Yes.
Michael. Jim, could you do me a huge favor? Yes, and I have water in my. Could you give 2 bottles of water out of my? Because I have 2 bottles here, one for Michael and one for myself, so that we could both keep a little moist, so I don't keep coughing. Thank you, Jim.
So
Thank you.
The lobbyist.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. The lobbyist. The lobbyist. You welcome the lobbyist to your office. They come in. They will call, make an appointment. As you can imagine, we're pretty busy with those appointments because of just the sheer volume of legislation and the number of issues we deal with. So, it's quite an education. The longer you're there, and you become fairly knowledgeable about subjects you care deeply about,
Right.
and want to learn more about. And the nice thing about what we do is we have access to some of the best minds, and
Yes.
people
Yes.
come into lobby and they say, if you have any further questions, don't
Yeah.
hesitate to call. I
Yeah.
will do that.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful education that I've received
Yeah.
being a member of the Assembly on a wide range of issues that I did not know much about before I arrived there. But the lobbyist simply comes in to talk, and the lobbyist will come in either alone on behalf of these people or with people in that organization,
Right.
and you'll have a conversation. And it's my duty to ask questions,
Right.
even probing questions, because sometimes groups, I have to make sure I'm getting all the information I need to make a good decision,
Right.
especially if it's something
Right,
that
right.
I'm
Right.
not
Right.
very
Because
knowledgeable
that's
about.
that's what my thought was. Like, you should gather all
Right.
the positive and negative. I used to. I have I always talk about Dominic Cortellessa. He was the board president at a community I used to be the lifestyle director at. Dominic is an incredible leader,
Right.
and he used to like when people had other thoughts, like were not negative, but were questioning what he was doing, because that made him more intelligent, to know what
Right.
all the pieces were. Maybe there was something that he didn't know, that he could add to his knowledge to lead the
Right.
community. So,
See,
yeah.
the lobbyist, and this is just a general statement, but the lobbyist has an objective. They are hired by people or organizations to go before legislators to persuade them to come to their side
Right.
of an issue and support their bill or oppose the bill. So my job and my duty is to ask probing questions, to kind of play the devil's advocate, if you will, to make sure I'm getting both sides. What I do, and this is, I'm going to speak for myself,
Right.
is I like to test lobbyists or even advocates to make, are they telling, not that they're not telling me the truth, but that they're telling me the whole story.
Yes.
All right?
Yes, I agree.
That I'm not getting they're not giving me just the information to try and get me to their side,
Right.
without covering, with every issue.
There's a
There
plus
are
and the
pluses
positive, and there's
minuses.
minuses.
There are, advantages or disadvantages. And
Right.
my duty is to find out what those negatives are. And sometimes I like to put them on the spot and say, picture yourself on the other side. What would you say are the arguments against what you're trying to do,
Right.
and how would you overcome them? And kind of test them and push them a little bit, because they're doing that with us. So it's a good exchange. It's always a healthy exchange. Nobody twists your arm. That doesn't happen. They don't lean on you. They don't threaten you. They don't
Right.
muscle you. They don't do anything like that. That is, that's all nonsense. But the good ones, and there are many, many very good lobbyists who come in, they respect your time. They respect
Right.
your position. They know they only have a short window of time, so they're very succinct, they're very direct. These are the pros, these are the cons, this is why we believe you should support this bill or why you should oppose it. And the good ones do that very well.
So they're just coming in as an advocate.
As advocates, correct. Hired advocates.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah. But it's good that somebody is specializing. That's really a hired advocate, somebody who specializes in the knowledge that they need to share with you.
Well, when you think about it, we deal with a wide range of topics. We have, the state budget is $168 billion.
I can't even imagine.
There are a lot of priorities. Not everyone is able to take time off from work, drive to Albany.
Yeah.
So the lobbyist provides a service to people and organizations to be their voice in Albany. And when we come home for example, we meet twice a year with the Medical Society of the State of New York.
Okay.
And we do it, they come up and lobby in Albany as well, but we always have 2 meetings with them here locally at their office. They have a huge, big conference room, and we meet with all the doctors, all the legislators, and we have usually it lasts a good 2 hours where we have back and forth. They're bringing their concerns to us. We're asking questions of them. They're asking about legislation. They're giving us why they like a certain piece of legislation or why they don't like a certain piece of legislation. So it's an opportunity to have that give and take in a period of time that you don't have in Albany. Because you just don't have that much time in Albany.
Right.
You have your, you've got committee meetings.
Yeah, you're on the go.
You have all your appointments. Yeah. You have, we have, groups visit Albany all the time, and if they're from your district, you host them.
I know.
So it is a very hectic.
I
remember when I first was elected and bumping into one of my colleagues at the rest stop on the thruway, having a cup of coffee on the way home, and she was telling me, and I'm a new member, and she was a veteran, and she says, remember, you can't get anything done in Albany.
I know.
Meaning, don't expect to get, because there is, everybody descends on Albany.
I know.
Believe it or not, you get a lot of drop-ins. People will just drop in to say hello.
Yeah.
They're from your district. You don't say, hey, can't see you now. No, but, if you have time, come on in. Hey, great to see you, the whole bit.
Yeah.
I tell local groups, look, we meet in the winter months. They come in with their coats, their boots. I said, look, I got a big closet here. We have a closet. If you want to leave your stuff here, make this home base. Hang up your coats. Leave your bags here. Go do your thing. And Margie, my staffer, is going to be here for the day, and just be comfortable in the lobby. You don't have to schlep all your things with you.
I remember because I was in Trenton with the American Stroke Association, and we were in the lobby, promoting strokes and aphasia and stuff, strokes, and you could see, the everybody running from place to place, and you're like, oh, I gotta go, it's
and it gets pretty crowded too,
yes.
because you're not the only group visiting Albany
Yeah.
today. I mean, there are, I joke around. I said the best business to be in is the bus business, especially during budget time, because all of the stakeholders, they're renting buses, they're coming up. Groups of 40, 100, usually 40, 45 people per bus, and busloads of people come up to lobby, and, so it gets pretty hectic.
I'm
so
sure.
When we have those meetings back in the district, meeting with the Medical Society, meeting with whatever group, it's not that it's more productive, it is a more productive environment because we're not in session, we're a little more relaxed, we're back home in the district, we're not.
And you could process and think about what has happened and what you've taken in, and then have your plan of action to move ahead. Because
so, we also get invited to a lot of what they call legislative breakfasts, and you'll see those if we're in session Monday and Tuesday. You'll see them on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday mornings, and a lot of the groups have legislative breakfasts, and that's also popular during budget time. Obviously, a lot of stakeholders in the budget, and they want us in front of them during that critical period of time. So those are always fun. I love corn muffins, so you have a corn muffin and a cup of coffee,
Toasted
and
corn
you're talking public policy, whatever's on their mind.
Back to that single, what was it? The
Single payer healthcare.
Can that be done statewide?
It can. It has. If I'm not a fan of single payer, but put that aside for the moment. If
I don't know too much about it.
Single payer is best done because the numbers don't work on a statewide basis. Yet the advocates for it push it at the state level. I think more, not so much because they believe it's going to work, because I think it does. It's the markets are too small. It really can only work at the national level. I don't believe it works at the national level either, but that's my belief. But it's very expensive. It has a whole host of issues that we can discuss and debate.
Yeah.
But from a dollars and cents standpoint, from a cost standpoint, you need as large a pool of taxpayers to finance this, and that's why the state of Vermont attempted this and it failed. So yes, Vermont's a small state. New York would be a large state. However, if you're going to establish a single payer and basically nationalize your health care, as they do in Great Britain, as they do in Canada, Ireland, it's government controlled. My objection with government control of things is government tends to make things more expensive and less efficient, and I think that's the fear with healthcare. I have this conversation with the doctors, not just when we meet at the medical society, but when I go to my own doctor.
Mm.
You know, I saw a doctor. I had a severe case of apnea that I had surgery to correct. I took advantage of that opportunity to talk about, because he knew I was in the assembly, and I had a great conversation about, what are your thoughts on healthcare? What do you think about, my eye doctor? I had LASIK, almost 20 years ago, and I'm always his longest appointment, because when I come in, we're talking shop.
Yeah.
He asks me questions, I ask him questions, and what should be a 15, 20-minute appointment is usually an hour.
He plans you in.
But I take advantage of that opportunity to probe them, because you're on the front line as a physician. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? What do you see are the benefits? What do you see are the pitfalls? I need to know, because when you're a legislator, and you're lobbied, a lot of people are just giving you just enough information. It's up to you to ask the questions. So I love asking questions,
right.
Because I need to know. Because when I cast that vote, that vote,
Right.
I'm casting a vote that's going to affect 18 million people, not just my constituents, but the entire state.
But it actually, I mean, from a stroke standpoint, it would. I don't know this to be true, and I probably have to do my investigation. But my concern is, like, insurance companies shouldn't really determine if I'm recovered or not, or that I don't need continuing physical therapy, or if I don't need continuing speech therapy, because they're just worried about the dollars, and they're not knowing that I am living proof that it takes continuous work after a stroke or aphasia for recovery for years after.
Now, take that, what you just said. We're going to compartmentalize that, and we're going to put that on the shelf. Stroke. Now, you have people who have
heart attacks,
autism.
Yes.
Pick the ailment.
Yeah.
And everybody has that same concern.
Yeah.
That it shouldn't be the insurance company that makes the determination. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that. A lot of people feel the way you do. All right? I do too. We can never avoid it. It all costs money, Renee.
Yeah.
And who pays for that?
I know.
Now, the easiest villain in the world is the insurance company. All right? Everybody loves a villain. The villain is the insurance company. Okay, I get that. And if the insurance company, it's a private sector company, so its goal is, yes, to make a profit. All right. The advocates of single payer believe there should not be profit in healthcare. Okay, that's one school of thought. If you're going to nationalize your healthcare, all right, what are you going to cover? To what level are you going to cover it? How are you going to finance it? where is that money going to come from?
Right,
Because
right.
if it's government control, it's going to come from taxation. Who's going to pay taxes? How much is going
Right,
to pay tax?
right.
How much tax are they going to pay?
Right.
On what scale, etc. How broad a tax base? Now, if you look at, and a lot of people like to look at Britain, the UK, Ireland, Canada, I'm not convinced that nationalized health care is a good idea. And there are plenty of cases out there. For example, in the UK, if you know who you should have on as a guest is my colleague Andrew
You listening,
Rea.
Judy?
My colleague Andrew Rea. Andrew
We'd love to.
is the ranking minority member of the health committee.
Okay.
All right, so he's the chief Republican on the health committee. He is very knowledgeable, far more than I am, on these specifics. But he can give you pinpoint examples of the limitations that are put on the National Health Service in the United Kingdom, because it can't be a blank check.
Right.
Now you know, just picture your one
know.
issue, stroke, and multiply that by every other medical issue out there, where people say exactly the same thing you say, that the insurance companies shouldn't be putting limits. Well, if there are no if you think single payer means no limits on healthcare,
No, I didn't. I was saying that. I don't know.
You would be incorrect, because
Yeah.
there was a great book on economics that I would highly recommend. It's called The Undercover Economist. And I read a review of it by a guy named Ray Keating, who was a local economics columnist in Newsday. And he reviewed 2 books, and I read both of those books because I like the field of economics because it's important. Economics and politics are intertwined. And the book was called The Undercover Economist by Tim Harford, Harford. And you can look it up on Amazon.
Okay.
And his discussion of healthcare was very interesting because he's a British economist. He's very familiar with the NHS, the National
Right.
Health Service. And he talks about he's not a fan of nationalized healthcare.
Right.
There are other ways to deal with the rising cost and how to control the cost of healthcare without having the government control it.
Right.
And again, the concern is how much is it going to cost,
Right.
and the quality of that care. So what he uses, for example, macular degeneration as an example. Now, there is a board that makes the decision of what therapy will be covered and to what extent. It's called the NICE, the National Institute for Clinical Evaluation. And they use a metric called the QALY. That stands for the Quality Assured Life Years. So when they measure, and he uses macular degeneration for a reason. One, it happens a lot to older people, but it affects 2 eyes. All right? So what they determined is if you fix one eye versus fixing both eyes, because you have to keep an eye on cost, if you fix one eye or both eyes, is there a discernible difference in the QALY?
Right.
And guess what? There isn't.
Right.
So guess what? If you have macular degeneration in the United Kingdom, you only get covered for one eye, and you would pay out of pocket for the other eye. Okay? So my colleague Andy Rea tells a story of how in Britain, they ration. If you're a doctor, you're given permission to do X number of a certain procedure. After that, the people on your list have to wait. So that a lot of the advocates, believe it's a panacea. I believe it is not. It is a paradigm shift of immense proportion that people in this country have no idea how immense it would be. Now, in other countries, when I had this discussion with the doctor I see in the city on my throat issue, I asked him what his thoughts were, and he says, he says what he's worried about with what they're advocating in Washington for nationalized health care is that it would eliminate all private insurance. The government would control all access to health care. In Britain, if you are unfortunate enough to be limited to the National Health Service, you may have to wait to get tested for this or that or a procedure done. But you also have access to private insurance if you want to basically cut the line.
Right.
And other countries allow that as well. If you don't have that here, I think you're going to have a real problem.
Yeah.
So it comes down to be careful what you wish for, because
Yeah.
some people really think, oh, this
I
is.
mean, there's good and bad about both.
Well, our system
both.
is broken.
Right. Right.
But do you need to scrap it entirely and go with a nationalized healthcare and have the government control almost 20% of your economy?
Right.
Or do you fix what's wrong and use market-oriented incentives?
You know, my concern, and is I hear everything you're saying, and I agree with you. I do. I agree with you. But I have met many stroke patients that are in a wheelchair, home,
Right.
and they can't get out of that wheelchair.
Right.
So, how can anybody say that they don't deserve any more recovery or health care?
You're right. It's how Renee. It boils down to, there are so many. What Tim Harford, the British economist, says, that the crux of the issue is we have unlimited wants.
Yeah.
I want the best care for my stroke condition. Every other medical condition wants the best care.
I know, but there's got to be some
And
sort of.
but there's only a finite number of dollars, whatever that budget is. Only a finite number of dollars. Now, some people believe we should spend less, say, in defense, and more on health care. Less on this and more on health care.
Yeah.
And that's what we argue in Albany, in Trenton, in Washington, etc.
And then sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
You have those that try to scam and take advantage, and the millions and millions of dollars all across the board, whether it's in government or whether it's the insurance or whether it's somebody who wears a neck brace who doesn't need a neck brace. You know what I'm saying?
Well, anytime there is a system, especially a government system, there's an element out there. We've how many times do we see stories about Medicare scams, Medicaid scams, doctors, lawyers, patients involved in these schemes to defraud Medicaid, Medicare, etc. There is a fair amount of that. Now, does a better job need to be done to combat that? Absolutely. How do we disincentivize that type of behavior? When you have a nationalized system of healthcare, I think the possibility of more of that increases, doesn't decrease, is my fear. And these are government-run programs already, and they're being scammed.
Right.
So, if the problem is when nothing is for free, Renee, and when people believe something is for free, they'll not only overuse it, they will abuse it.
They abuse it, and that's I get it. So I'm not putting all the blame on the insurance or the government, because I know we as people have taken advantage of it, and that's why most people are skeptic. I was hit by a car and hurt my knee, and I had to be under what do you call it when the gentleman comes in and interviews you?
The adjuster?
No. I was I was questioned.
Okay.
What's that?
Interrogation.
Yeah, I don't know. But I'm like, this happened. This guy came around the corner. He hit me. I was walking. What more do you need to, I was really upset by the fact that they were questioning me, and someone said to me, Renee, and this is why I brought to you about she goes, I saw somebody going into an attorney's office with a head brace and a cane, a neck brace and a cane, and she was walking in, she went in, she did her thing, then I saw her in the supermarket the next day without it. She goes, that's the, but I'm like, but I was hit, it's in the police report.
You go to an attorney, the attorney files the suit, the insurance company basically
rips it apart.
Attempts to rip it apart. They have an attorney. They end up settling the case. Yeah. Because and the attorney gets a third of it. Some would call it a racket, and there are elements of that involved with this. It's you go to a lawyer, the lawyers sue, they get the settlement, they get a third of it. It's a business. Yeah. It's a business.
I don't know. It floors me. It floors me.
And that increases insurance rates. Auto fraud is the same thing.
Yes.
It increases the rates that we all pay, and this is why there's pressure. The insurance companies apply pressure. This is why they're reluctant or hold off on paying things they make it difficult.
Right. Right.
good, bad, or indifferent, but it's some of these cost pressures that they have, because you can't just keep increasing rates beyond people's ability to pay. That's how we got into this situation in the first place, because insurance rates were, and they continue to grow. And here's the other thing: when you talk about health care, you look at medical technology that we have today.
It's incredible.
It is incredible. But unlike the economics of healthcare, unlike other products where the more you use, the cheaper it gets, that's not true in healthcare.
Right.
Medical technology is one of the reasons why healthcare costs are rising as significantly. So these machines are wonderful.
Yes.
They're incredibly advanced, but they're also very, very expensive.
Yes.
And it costs a lot of money to buy them, to maintain them, and to operate them,
and to cover them by insurance.
And everybody wants it because it's the best there is.
Right. Yeah, because even the mobile units,
correct,
with the Skyping, where you could telemedicine. That's what I was going to say. Telemedicine. There was some, when it was new, it was like the insurance isn't covering it, and you can't, if that'll save someone's life, but the insurance, that just.
We have a gentleman here on Long Island we're very fortunate to have, who's one of the not only national leaders but international leaders in the field of healthcare, and that's Michael Dowling, who's the head of Northwell Health. He's a Long Islander. He was the under Governor Mario Cuomo, was the head of the health department. He's just published a book, I understand. I just read about it. He might be an interesting guest.
Yeah, we're going to ask him.
talk about where we're going in healthcare. He just wrote a book. I'm very eager to read it. I just read a little bit about it in Newsday a week or so ago over the holidays. But there is so much happening in healthcare, not just to improve care, but also to bring down the cost of that care. And wellness has now become, a big term. Encouraging people to take better care of themselves.
Yes.
Obviously, eat better, get more exercise.
Absolutely.
The usual stuff.
Absolutely.
But it matters.
It matters.
It really matters, because if you're not taking better care of yourself, then you're going to cost the system a lot more money later on.
Yes.
And it's getting, back when I was a kid, I still enjoy Coca-Cola, but I hardly ever drink it because
of the sugars.
Because of the sugar. But when I was a kid, I drank it all the time, but I was also running around like crazy.
Yeah.
Kids don't do that anymore. They're doing this all day. Video games, they're less active. They're less participation in sports, etc. So there are health consequences for these lifestyles. Yeah. And so it is a fascinating subject, but I would, if a far better person to talk to about the pros and cons would be, Andy Rea, because he's on the health committee.
Right, we're going to
and I think I think we might be in his district right now here in Huntington.
We are.
But also, I don't know if he'd make himself available because he's a big shot. But Michael Dowling is a fascinating individual.
I would love to have everybody, including you, here and have a roundtable discussion, about the health care. Because I think it's really important that we keep the conversation and for everybody to know that we're working on it.
Right.
We want better health care. And you're absolutely positively 1,000,000% positive that we do need to have better health for ourselves.
Right.
Because 80% of strokes can be prevented.
Sure.
80%, that's a staggering statistic.
Right.
You need to visit your doctors. You need to know your baseline. You need to know your numbers. You need to know, the signs for a stroke. Which is the face, the arms, the smile, the speech, and the time.
Yes.
It's just so important, because if you do that within that 4.5 hour window, you can get the proper health care and not go through what I went through, and everybody is suffering, and you don't have to be that person in the wheelchair.
Right.
And you need to not smoke. You need to take care of your blood pressure. You need to take care of your cholesterol.
Yeah, you talk about. I could tell you this, share the story with you, because it's still. I still think about it when my mom had her stroke, and this is going on over 6 years ago. I was. My mom lived just about 2 miles away from my home. I had a key to her. Of course, I had a key to her condo. I think it's January, was early January. I'm not sure. I don't think it was opening day. I don't think it was January 1st. But I was in the town of Islip for the swearing-in ceremony for the elected officials in Islip. And I cover, part of my district is Islip. So I'm on stage at a school with many of my colleagues, and I had my cell phone in my pocket on vibrate. And I'm noticing as I'm on the stage with my colleagues, full house,
Right.
my phone is going off and going off
Right.
and going
And
off.
you know it's
And
something.
I'm touching, something's going on. And I usually, when I go to public events, I throw this in the glove compartment.
Yeah.
I don't bring it in
Yeah.
because it's rude to. Now, I cannot be on stage and take out a phone and see what's going on in front of a crowd like that.
Right.
That would not, it would be rude. It
Right.
wouldn't look good. I had this thing in my pocket vibrating. I'm touching the button to stop it. But it was my mother was having the stroke.
Oh my gosh.
And my brother
Yeah, I
and
remember
sister
we talked about this.
were trying to reach me. And it wasn't until the conclusion of that ceremony, almost an hour later, that I opened up. I called my brother, because I have my brother and sister. I said, "What's up? Get to the house ASAP. Something's wrong with Mom."
Yeah.
And she was having the stroke. So it's like, it just drove me
Yeah.
crazy that, I will never do that again if something like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
happens. And
If they're calling you,
I'll
and
discreetly,
Yeah,
okay,
look.
and if I have to excuse myself, I
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
But wow, could that have made a difference in my mother's outcome if I had been able to step away? And you don't think that's going to happen.
No, nobody thinks.
And
the
what's
stroke
going
is gonna
on?
happen.
And I think back, and could I have, could it have been less severe if I had been able to react more quickly?
Right.
But because as an elected official, a public figure, I'm on stage at a ceremony, and it wouldn't look good if I pull out my phone.
But they didn't call
you know.
911, or they were just
Well,
concerned.
they
Yeah.
did, but we didn't. They couldn't get into the house
Oh, yeah.
because my mother was in bed,
Yeah.
and I'm the only one
Yeah.
with a key.
Yeah. My grandmother's
know?
95. My uncle just went to Florida for 2 months. And and when every day I call my grandmother, I go see her every day.
Mhm.
And when she doesn't answer the phone, it's like,
Right.
panic.
Right.
But I've learned to give it a few minutes because she takes a little longer in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Sometimes she doesn't hear the phone anymore.
Right.
Yep.
Same
So
with
it
my
was
mom.
it was good.
Yeah.
Is your mom?
She had a nice recovery. It was a hemorrhagic stroke, so no paralysis. But she is a little different. If you met her for the first time, you'd say, "Wow,
Yeah.
But we know she's not the same."
Because
as she
it
was.
alters your brain.
It does.
Which is what aphasia is, which
Right.
people don't understand. Initially when many years back, when people would talk to me and I wasn't comprehending them, I was looking at
Right.
them like I don't get it. They would, what's wrong with her?
Right. Exactly.
What's wrong with her?
Exactly.
Is she drunk? Is she on drugs? Is she
Yeah.
not with it? Is she have a mental?
Right.
No, I just had a stroke and I had to. You have to defragment your brain. Your brain
Right.
has to kind of, shift back into the place, and
Right.
sometimes it doesn't go back to the way it was.
When my mom had her stroke, for the first couple of weeks, we didn't think it was going to end well.
Yeah.
It just did not look good. And what really made a difference for her was the rehabilitation she
and the
had.
love around her.
And the love, but the rehabilitation at St. Charles was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that she really broke through a barrier
Wow.
thanks to them.
Oh.
And they were wonderful. But that's when she really started a road to recovery. But the first couple of weeks, it's like, oh my God, this is not going to end well. This
Yeah.
doesn't look good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you're scared. I mean,
The
you
unknown.
know, the unknown, and my dad's been dead 30 years, but oh my God, are we going to lose Mom? And it's
It's a shock.
Yeah, it is.
It's a shock.
It
And back when I had
it gets in your head. It really does.
back 30 years ago when I had mine, they had no idea about a stroke. Strokes
Right.
were not on the
Right.
radar. It was just old people suffered a stroke.
Right.
They didn't know
That's right.
anything.
That's right.
So, I know, Jim, what time is it? We're running out of 2 more minutes. So, what's your plan for 2019?
Well,
Assemblyman?
the objective is to go back to Albany and be the voice and the advocate for the issues that I care about. In the minority, sometimes we're able to have an impact at the committee level on legislation. I have a wonderful relationship with many of my friends on the other side of the aisle. where we're able to talk and advocate and say, hey, take a look at this, take a look at that, be mindful of this, be mindful of that. We do have those conversations a lot, because some people believe, well, you're in the minority, you can get nothing done. That's not true necessarily. We don't get to pass a lot of bills, but we are able to have an impact behind the scenes to try and
mold those.
and to help out on an issue, to try to help things along. Sometimes it can get a little confrontational depending on the member, but I pride myself on having good relationships with many friends. I call them friends because we are friends.
Yeah.
We've traveled together. We play basketball together. We go to dinner together. It's we
And
have our principles and we have our philosophies, and we have our responsibilities, but it doesn't mean you have to be disagreeable. And I've been doing this for 3 decades now.
Wow.
And I've always prided myself on my relationships with everybody.
Yes, and you're excellent. And thank you so much.
Yeah, and I believe in the importance of what we do. The public policy arena is, everything we do is affected by government policy, taxes, regulation, etc. And to be part of that conversation, to be in the scrum, to use an old rugby term, to kind of get your hands dirty and get bloodied and messy. It's as I enjoy the quote by Teddy Roosevelt. That's a famous quote, but the credit belongs to the person who's in the arena.
Yes.
To those of us who are willing to get in the arena, because it's not easy. It's rough and tumble. It carries risk. You can always lose, but nothing feels better than a win. But it's the willingness to be in that arena, to try and mold public policy and advance a cause, your cause, the cause, downfield toward the end zone. You're not always successful. Like most things in life, you fail more than you succeed. You're frustrated more than you're happy. But those times when you do have a victory of any kind, it does feel good. And aside from the legislative duties, you're the people's advocate for in-state government. So the constituent service we do, the problems we've been able to solve for people, the help we've been able to give to people really makes you feel good. I'll just tell a story. Unfortunately, it did not have a good outcome, but a friend of mine's wife had a very serious health issue, and they reached out to me to try and get her into Cornell in the city, and I was able to make a couple of phone calls, and we got her in.
Oh my God! Thank God.
Ultimately, it was helpful, and it made my day.
Right.
But unfortunately, she didn't make it later on. But she got to where she needed to be when she needed to be there, and playing a role in helping that just made me feel pretty good.
Yes.
And helping the family, and they were old friends, and it was just you just spring into action, and you have the contacts, you have you know people from being in this business,
because people respect you,
and you know how to and you know who to reach out to get something done. And that's something I enjoy doing when the need arises, and it's one of the things we all do that.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You are so warm, and really, you speak in layman's terms.
Yep, that's helpful.
Yes, because sometimes people talk like above in their language, like the politics language, and I'm like, And it's good because the general population who's watching this, they want to be able to understand what it is that you're doing and what it is that we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think the level of success you enjoy is very dependent on your ability to communicate, not just the what, why, and where and wherefores of issues, but just treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yes.
That's always key.
Yeah.
And people, I have found, and I've been doing this for over 3 decades, people want information. They even if they disagree with you, they don't want to be lied to, obviously.
No.
They don't want to be misled. they respect the truth.
Right.
And they may disagree with you,
Right.
but I have found, I've had friends on the other side, constituents come up and say, I don't agree with you,
Yeah.
but I really appreciate the fact that you put it on the table.
You put it on the table.
And you can't be fearful of that.
No.
And I like to debate. I like having the give and take.
Right.
You know, it's through vigorous debate that we arrive at the truth.
Right.
Is
Right.
a quote that I
Right.
really love, and I enjoy the give and take because I may learn something.
Yeah.
You always need to learn, so you're always learning.
Because it's our
And-
truth.
Right.
It's our truth. It's your truth. But maybe your truth can bring some light to my truth.
So where am I wrong? Where do you think I'm wrong? What do we disagree with, and vice versa. So I can say I thoroughly enjoy what I do.
You're very good at it.
I think it's important what we do at every level: federal, state, county, town, village.
Yeah.
It's disappointing that people kind of don't like politics, and I think maybe the negative campaigning has turned people off, and that is a negative, and that it needs to stop. I don't practice that kind.
Right.
When I do my political ads or anything, it's, hey, look, you want to, I played a lot of basketball, and I love that expression.
The
Basketball
sports.
is life. You want to push and shove underneath the basket, that's okay.
Yeah.
No blood, no foul.
Yeah.
And you gotta, that's part of the business too.
Yeah.
It's politics ain't beanbag, as they say.
Right.
But you always be respectful of your opponent. You never get nasty. You never
Yeah,
get negative. You never get personal. You keep it to the issue at hand and go at it.
Yeah. I mean, the greatest of sports athletes go at it on the field.
Yeah.
And then they're best friends off the court and off the field.
It's called sportsmanship,
Yeah.
and what we need is more sportsmanship, good sportsmanship in politics. And I, like the peace prayer of St. Francis, let there be peace on earth, let it begin with me. Well,
That's
if there's
my
going to be
favorite
sportsmanship, then let it begin with me.
Yes.
If each of us take care of that individually, the problem gets solved pretty quickly.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite songs that I made an agreement with God, because I had an out-of-body experience, and when I had my stroke, God spoke to me, and I said, whatever you want me to do, whatever you want me to do. And I said, I promised that I would always live by that. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And it's hard.
At times.
It's hard work.
It's
hard work to not get caught up in the trials and tribulations and negative and the fighting between everybody and pick sides. It's hard to just speak your truth and stay honest. And that's why, our foundation really, we write that, we want to touch everybody with peace and hope and love. And really, our motto is to touch everybody along the way with love. That's really one of the things that we try to do, so. Sorry. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the information you provided today. Oh my gosh. And thank you all for joining us today. Like Assemblyman and I were just sitting here chatting, and we weren't even paying attention to you, the audience, but I'm sure that you picked up on so much information that Assemblyman Fitzpatrick shared with us. And of course, you can always rewind and watch it on Facebook again, and go to our website, www.ReneMarie-TV.com, to see it, or the Village Connection Radio, ReneMarie Stroke of Luck. And we are really honored about this year. I tell you, it's going to be an incredible year. We're picking up the level. We're going to really start making impacts. I'm really going to get involved with learning how to put a bill in. I'm going to learn more about the bills that are in, so that I could make a difference and my voice can be heard. It's like with politics, you have to vote.
You have to speak up. Just talk to your member of the assembly or senate.
Yeah.
If you see them, or go to if they're having a meeting, or if they're going to be somewhere.
Yeah.
Always approach them. I go. Yesterday I was at an Eagle Scout ceremony, and today I'll be at one this afternoon. And people come up to me all the time at whatever type of function it is, and just can I talk to you about this? Can I talk to you about that? Yeah, that's what I'm here.
Yeah.
Be visible and accessible was what I learned from my father. Who had a successful career as well, and it's just be visible and accessible to your constituents.
Yeah. Yep. So That's our promise for 2019. Judy, I hope you're feeling better. And next week we're having a wonderful show, and it'll be at 9 o'clock, and we are going to press it later this week. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you once again, Assemblyman. And we're going to blow our kisses, okay? God bless everybody. See you next week.
Que haré, yo no sé lo que estoy perdiendo, yo no sé lo que va a pasar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti, no me puedes oír llorar. El día que caminaste por la puerta, todas las memorias fueron. Mi corazón está vacío, como si tuviera ayer. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. Usted está en mi sueño por la noche. Por favor, no peleemos. Y es tan difícil para mí y para ti. ¿Qué puedo hacer? No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír, no me puedes escuchar. No me puedes escuchar llorar, llorar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón
last dance.
Oh, my mind clear. Oh, I shall my tears. Oh, now baby, I was just waiting here while you moved on.
Security, this is about freedom you kept from me. The sound of all your loaded gun, this outright war has just begun. The sound of all your loaded gun, this broken man has already won.